Today we're joined by Zoe Kelly, Head of Data Engineering at Reward. Zoe has had an incredible journey and has an amazing story to share. Her journey has truly shaped her into the amazing leader that she is today.
You've just got to keep moving forward, and everyone makes mistakes, but growth comes from being out of your comfort zone. And if you can own up to those mistakes and, as I say, put mediation around it as to how you're going to fix it and how you're going to improve, then more power to you.
We're going to chat about the ever-evolving world of data, tackling the age-old debate of technical versus non-technical skills in leadership. With so many job descriptions out there asking for unicorns with unrealistic expectations, Zoe brings a refreshing perspective as a genuine people person and skilled communicator.
There's just too many buzzwords on them. It's like, you need to have this, you need to have this, you need to have this. Okay, but actually, is that going to actually be used in the day-to-day of this role? Probably not. So why do you need to have it?
It's going to be a heartfelt conversation with plenty of insights, so stick around. Huge thanks to Zoe for being so candid with us. Enjoy! Zoe, let's talk data. So before we get into that, how was last night? Let's talk data events.
It was brilliant. It was the first, obviously, Mariah event that I'd done. Double whammy coming up to Manchester to do that last night, and then obviously recording today. It's very, very different to the London meetup scene. Mm-hmm. The London ones that I've been involved of are quite tech heavy, which is important. But this was quite nice that it wasn't just focused on the tech; it was about the people and the diversity and leadership and that sort of stuff. So it was really, really good fun, and it was great to meet the fellow panelists as well. Sat and had a really good chat with Jessica and Rob and Philip afterwards, which was really, really nice to kind of debrief and decompress after the event as well.
Oh,
so, yeah,
amazing.
it was really good.
Yeah, we are passionate about bringing events to the north.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's a nice intimate size. I mean, it was a good number last night.
Yeah.
But we try and be interactive and engaging because, we're not trying to pretend we're something that we're not.
Yeah.
Like there is room for those big corporate events, but we like to do things a little bit differently.
Absolutely. And the hot seat I thought was really good as well.
Good.
Especially the way that you set up people asking questions, because some people can find it really daunting standing up in front of people and talking, but giving them a platform to ask important questions, and then anyone who has advice to come up and say, I think this could be good for you or similar, I think was a really, really good way to finish off the evening. So,
amazing. Yeah, I think that will play a part in all the events going forward.
Excellent.
I was a bit nervous before. I was like, is anyone, not everyone sat on the hot seat, but again, that's fine.
That's fine.
You can talk anywhere. But no, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was really
good. Here
good.
we are again talking data.
We are, yes.
So I thought we'd start with how and why you got into data.
How and why? So I did information technology at university. I hated programming. I just could not get on with Java. It was the only programming language I did back then. Could not get on with it, didn't like it, and wanted to focus more on the business side initially. So did a lot of, business analysis stuff and courses to do with that. And then at the end of my, or the second semester of my first year, we started doing a SQL module. And I just kind of fell in love with it. It just clicked in my brain. I don't know why it clicked in my brain, but it just did. And thinking about data and, it is literally everywhere. Your Spotify playlists are data. Your receipts from when you go shopping are data. Data is everywhere. And I really, really liked the fact that it could have such a massive impact in every aspect of the world. And every aspect of daily life. So I thought, okay, this is good. I'm good at it. I enjoy it. Let's pursue it. So when I finished university, I got my first job as it was called a systems administrator, but it was very SQL heavy, looking after their back end for the legal platform. And I've just been in it ever since and still love it today. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And I love how you explain that data is everywhere. It's ubiquitous.
Yeah.
And it's a massive part of the podcast as well, because people outside of the data space don't understand how much it can empower them with the right knowledge.
Yeah.
So that's an amazing way of putting it.
Yeah.
How have you seen data evolve since your time in the space? Because it is an ever-evolving industry.
Massively.
Like you mentioned, even at a time, data wasn't really in titles, although it was a data role. So how have you seen the evolution?
Massively. I mean, businesses are paying much more attention to data now, which is a good thing. Data can create so much value, and trying to prove that value is a challenge, but it really, really can prove so much value. And it's nice to see data getting the recognition that it needs as its own standalone function these days. tooling landscape is just incredible. Every time I listen to something new or go to a new event, there's some new tool out there or some new technology that it has come on the market. And then as a new trend, everyone panics to try and learn it. And you probably don't need to rush into things like that, but it's good to have an awareness of what is coming out. When I first started, it was literally SQL Server pretty much. Python was just coming in as a programming language to start using. And now everything is Python, everything's cloud. It's completely different to what it was. So there's definitely an anxiety there to keep on top of everything and keep on top of the changing trends, because it does move so quickly. And now obviously we've got the whole AI agenda as well, which has taken the data world by storm. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes in the future and how that can be proved useful as well.
Yeah, it is an ever-evolving space. And like you said, some companies dive into technology-first approach. In terms of yourself, I know you're very passionate about people and leadership. How did you get into leadership?
I became a good individual contributor and then got put into a team lead role. I think that's how most people actually get into leadership. We were discussing this last night. How do you actually measure that someone is ready for a leadership role? And for me, because I'm quite outgoing anyway, I've done public speaking since I was quite young in school, so that never really fazed me either. I think it was kind of a natural next step for me, whereas for some people it's not. And if you are a very, very good individual contributor, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a good people manager either. Whereas for me, because I am so people focused and people centric, and, you know, making sure that people have got career plans in place and that they know what they want to do with their career, what technologies they want to use, etc. It's amazing seeing people grow. That's where I get my thrill. There's one guy who's worked for me for 7.5 years, and watched him go from junior up to principal, and it's really nice that, you know, he still works for me and he trusted me to help him along in his career, and it's been really, really great to see him get to where he's at now. And for me, that's what it's all about. I've been people-centric my entire life.
Yeah, that is amazing. And a testament to you as well that he's still with you after
all
that time.
Yeah.
It is hard to strike the balance, though. I think I suppose I had leaders that maybe weren't what I wanted to be. They weren't aspirational. So I was like, I don't want to be like that.
Yes.
But I can't say I ever had many leaders, unfortunately, that I aspired to. And for me, when I got into leadership, I was so fixed on not being like them. I think I went the other way, and I was too lenient, and because I didn't want to be a horrible boss, and I was a people pleaser. And I found it hard to strike that balance though, because they do say you'll lose friends, but I don't really like that way of putting it. You don't need to be disliked, but you also need a level of respect.
Absolutely.
How do you strike that balance? Because that is something that I struggle with, and I know a lot of people do.
Yeah, I had exactly the same thing when I very first started. I was like, okay, the team need to like me, we need to get on, we need to be able to work together, rather than actually what is best for the team and what is best for the company. And I'd like to think I've grown out of that now with my experience. But you're right, it is a tough balance to strike. And for me, it's about building the trust within the team. If they know they can come to you if something's gone wrong, and you can present that to the business in a way of, okay, this is what's happened. We know that this is wrong, but with root cause analysis, it to pinpoint this problem, and we're going to fix it in this way and mediate it in this way. It becomes a much easier conversation to have with the business, and then the team know that they can trust you. And then you do get that balance of, okay, I can come to you with a problem, but also we can have fun and do good work at the same time.
Yeah. And psychological safety is so important, isn't it? Like you said, building that trust. So have you evolved then in terms of your leadership style, would you say?
I would definitely think so, yeah. As I say, when I first started management, it was team lead role, whereas now it's like a team of 17 people. So it has grown a lot, and we've got to the point where I'm managing managers, which is also really nice to do, and that's a complete kind of culture shock as well, going from managing individual contributors to now managing managers who are managing individual contributors, and trying to impart that management wisdom onto those people so that they can then help their team, which in the long run obviously helps you and your function. It is tough, but you've just got to keep moving forward, and everyone makes mistakes, but growth comes from being out of your comfort zone. And if you can own up to those mistakes, and as I say, put mediation around it as to how you're going to fix it and how you're going to improve, then more power to you.
That's brilliant. Did you have a mentor or a coach yourself that was guiding you through this journey?
No, I didn't.
Wow.
It's a very similar sort of thing. I had a couple of managers who did certain things the way I didn't quite like. It wasn't how I wanted to manage a team. But obviously everyone has different management styles and everyone is different. So I just kind of picked up on things from podcasts and books. And there's a really good book actually called The 9 Types of Leader. I can't actually remember who wrote it, so I'll have to edit that bit in. But it's called The 9 Types of Leader, and that's really, really interesting because it's not just about your leadership style, it's about you as a person and then how your leadership style comes into play in the workplace.
Wow, fair play, because it's a tough world to navigate.
It is.
And like we said last night, data leadership as well. You've not had predecessors, you're carving your own path. So as well as all you've mentioned, you're trying to get the buy-in from the wider business to implement data strategy in the first place. So how was that journey for you? Because you went from, did you say 3 to 17 in the space of about 8 years?
Yeah. It's difficult when you don't report into a CDO type role. So the company I work at now, we've moved the data team around quite a few times. We started off as part of a data and insight group. We moved into operations and now we're in the tech world, combined up with software. When leaders have their own skill set that isn't data focused, it can be difficult to try and convey the message that you're trying to get across. We need budget for this, we need funding for this, or we need people to do this. It's all about storytelling, as we said last night. You need to use analogies that people understand to try and get them on the journey with you and understand how you can then bring value, how what you're asking for is going to bring value. It can be tough if people don't understand what it is you're talking about, but it's all down to communication and telling a story.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So how did it look when you first joined in terms of strategy? Because you were appointed at a leadership level when you first joined Reward.
No, I was individual contributor, database analyst, as part of the data and insight function, headed up by a great person who I really respect even to this day. He's retired now, but he was great and really put a lot of trust in me, which I really, really appreciated. We were split into 3 different areas. So there was data operations, there was insight and business intelligence. And unfortunately, when he made the decision to move on, the team was disbanded and we moved into operations. And after that, we then moved into tech. But at the time that I started, it was more of like a ticketing system of we want to do this, we want to do this. I was quite distanced from any kind of data strategy because I was individual contributor level. The data strategy has only really picked up sort of the last 18 months or so. I think with the change in the landscape for tooling and all that other good stuff that we've talked about, it's you need to have a data strategy now. You need to know where you want to go, and it's very, very heavy on what's our AI agenda and what are we doing with this and what tool sets do we need and how are we going to operationalize and how are we going to scale and things like that. And you can't scale a business if you don't have it. It's just impossible if you don't know where you're heading.
Yeah. I mean, you raise a good point there, because where does data lie? Like, should it be within technology? Should it be its own department?
Yeah.
Should it be centralized? Should it be decentralized? What is your opinion on that?
I mean, there are pros and cons. There are pros and cons for every scenario. Having worked in the different teams, right now, as I say, right now we're paired up with software. So I report into the director of engineering. He looks after software and data. And it's definitely a lot easier to get help from the software team when we need extra QA support or when we need, I don't know, DevOps support or anything like that, because it's all that one manager's problem. He needs to sort it out. He needs to fix it. But then there's definitely synergies, obviously, with the insight team. And so collaborating and working well with them is crucial. I don't think I have an opinion on where it best sits because it depends on the organisation. But in every scenario, you need to have good communication with all your different groups in the business that you deal with. And it's not just tech or insight. Data do stuff with finance team, with marketing team, with everybody. So it's crucial to have those good stakeholder relationships. And I think where the team sits is less important if you have those good relationships.
Yeah, good point. And then how do you feel about, we did touch on this as well last night, the job descriptions that we see, and people want everything.
Yes.
You know, is it a CDO? Is it head of? It doesn't matter. You need Python skills.
Yep.
It's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And I think it is a misunderstanding perhaps to those hiring managers that maybe aren't in data, but equally if they're in the infancy of data strategy, they maybe don't have the budget for a full team. They want first boots on ground and then grow from there. But a lot of the heads of roles do require hands-on skills. And I know it's something that you've discussed, because how do you balance being hands-on, strategic, leading a team? Like, it's almost impossible.
It is almost impossible. There just aren't enough hours in the day. And I'm at a point where I'm much more strategic, looking at the product and with the team, how are we delivering, not necessarily delivering it myself. So I still dabble in SQL. You know, I'm teaching myself Python in my spare time. You know, I still create Power BI reports if the team are in a real bind. But for the most part, the contributions come from the team themselves. And I do think it's kind of impossible to do both well. It's like that saying, jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
You know, if you do everything, are you really putting 100% into everything? And are you doing it to the best of your ability? Probably not, because you're spread so thin. So I do think it is impossible. And I think there does need to be some sort of standardisation across the market as to what is expected of a head of, what is expected of a CDO, etc. Because it is different in every organisation.
Yeah. I think fundamentally people don't know what they're looking for.
No, exactly.
Like, this sounds good.
Yeah.
Or we'll copy that job description that company has.
Exactly.
Really with understanding what end result. But then again, they don't know what's possible.
No.
You know, if you've not got data strategy, you've not got data people in, they really need someone. Because a lot of roles we work, it's kind of, I know it's frustrating, but it's like for you to carve your own path in the way that you need to tell them how it's going to work. And that's where the communication comes in.
Yeah, definitely. I think with a lot of job descriptions these days as well, there's just too many buzzwords on them. It's like, you need to have this, you need to have this, you need to have this. Okay, but actually, is that going to actually be used in the day-to-day of this role? Probably not. So why do you need to have it? If you're managing a team that need to have it, I was talking to Philip about this last night. You know, I said, I'm learning Python in my spare time. He said, but do your team know it? I said, yeah. He said, so why do you need to learn it if they're doing it? So, but I don't want to be left behind in the industry as a head of, because a lot of, you know, you see job descriptions on LinkedIn all the time. A lot of them are asking for this sort of stuff, even at a strategic level. So it is really difficult to strike the balance, especially if you're not getting that commercial experience in your role, actually putting stuff into practice in your kind of portfolio of work and learning and stuff that you're doing in your spare time. It can be difficult to keep up to speed with everything.
Yeah, I get that. It was interesting how he was talking about once you do get to CDO or director level, you're not talking about technology at all or anything technical. No. You're just really problem solving every different department's problem.
Yeah.
And I do think there's some interesting conversations around that and navigating the board and what they want and managing expectations. For you, are you looking at like that career trajectory? Like, do you want to become C-suite within data? Is that
I would love to. I would love to. I do think it's very important to keep women in technology. Obviously, I'm passionate about data, but technology as a whole, you know, we need to keep women in technology. There's, you know, some women go on career breaks if they go and have children and they feel like they get left behind. It's important to keep people in the space, because everyone has different experiences through work, through life, through everything, and those experiences are invaluable when you get to decision making. And I would love to get to that point at some point in my career, hopefully. But again, at that point, are you actually talking about data? So it's a toss up for me. Do I want to be C-suite or do I want to be a data leader? And at the moment, I would love to see a job doing both properly. So it's something I want to aspire to eventually. But when I actually get there, I might change my mind.
I know, you'd be like, this is, I mean, we do hear it. It's such a pressurised role, isn't it? In every industry.
Yeah.
How have you found being a female in the space then, touching upon diversity?
Yeah, I think because I'm so outgoing anyway, I've not really found it a struggle, but I know other people do. So the team I've got at the moment, team of 17, there are 3 females in the team. And that's not through a fault of not trying to hire women or only hiring men or anything like that. It's just there are so many less females in the space. So trying to do things that encourage women to get into technology and into data is really crucial. And you have to do that at school level, university level. And then keeping them in the industry is then another challenge. So personally, I found it okay, but I'm not sure I am the norm in that either. I think I'm probably the exception because I will just talk to anybody.
Have you seen a shift in your time? Like there's more women coming into STEM, would you say? Or do you think it's been quite the same throughout?
From my experience, I think it's probably been about the same throughout. I know there are more sort of mentoring opportunities and STEM programs to try and encourage women to get into STEM. For me personally, from my experience, it's stayed pretty much the same.
Yeah. So you said yourself you've not had a mentor then on your journey at all, but now you're a mentor.
I am
She
a
mentors.
mentor. Yes.
How are you finding that?
Really, really good. Yeah. We had our first meeting when she got back from holiday last week. We've got a plan in place and given her some tips of podcasts to listen to, books to read, events to get herself into, and I think it's going to be a really good partnership.
That's invaluable, really, isn't it? But you could still, I suppose, seek mentorship, and I have spoken to people about this and vulnerability. Like, more you network, just say to someone,
absolutely,
like, if there's a CDO out there, female or not, how did you get there? What was your journey? You know, put yourself out there. Would you do that?
Absolutely. You're never too old or experienced to learn. And putting yourself out there. I have experience where I can help people at the individual contributor level sort of come up to management level, but there's so much that other people can teach me and help me about getting from where I am now up to that next stage.
Of course.
And you're never too old to stop learning. You're never too old to hear other people's experiences. And even if you think you're the best in the world at something, someone else can still give you some invaluable advice that would make you better.
Yeah, and it's reassuring, isn't it? Like, I think sometimes, like we've said, can be very lonely. How do you find vulnerability in leadership? Because that's something I've struggled with. But it was someone I was talking to who, do you know who Brené Brown is? She's an author. She did a TED talk on vulnerability, actually. And it, again, striking that balance. It's like, I don't want to cry in front of my team when I'm having a hard time. But equally, you can't put a brave face on forever because I've personally reached burnout from just everything's perfect and I'm putting on a show all the time. But again, you don't want to be seen to like be really struggling necessarily. How have you navigated that?
Remote work is great for that. You can hide behind the camera. I've suffered a lot with my mental health, I'm not going to lie. I've been taking anti-anxiety medication for a long time. I struggle a lot with imposter syndrome. It can be difficult to be vulnerable, and I actually find it easier being vulnerable with my team than I do with my managers.
Really?
Yeah, because I think with the management, there is an expectation to be, yes, this is all fine, this is all good, we can do this. Whereas with the team, it's like, okay, I know this is going to be hard, but we can get through it and we can do it. So for me, the vulnerability has been better with my team than it has been with my managers. But, you know, I've had to take time off from burnout and stress before. And as something else I'm quite passionate about, you know, everyone should feel empowered to do what's right for them at the time in their life and at the time in their career. And being someone that has struggled with anxiety and panic attacks in the past, it is difficult to try and put on that brave face all the time, but you will come out of it.
Yeah.
It will get better. You will come out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you're creating a safe space for your team though.
Yeah.
Do you find that they're vulnerable with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if they can see that you're not perfect all the time, they know that they don't have to be perfect all the time. And when you try and get that perfection, that's when things slip under the radar, fall through the cracks, and you lose that respect and teamwork element of, yes, we're in this together. Whereas when they can see you being vulnerable, it's like, oh, okay, she's feeling the stress as much as I am. It's not just a case of I'm trying to do this by myself and she doesn't care type thing. So yeah, it is important to be vulnerable with your team and let them see that you're not perfect either.
Yeah, I think it's a generational thing. So you don't feel comfortable being vulnerable with your managers because they've probably never been vulnerable with you. Is that right?
Possibly, yeah, possibly.
I think there's like, I don't know, they call it like, what is it, toxic positivity, or I can't really remember, but stoicism. I do follow stoicism. It really interests me. But then the whole keep calm and carry on and it's like, no, you can't, that's not sustainable.
No, it's not.
Maybe like you're having a bad day, you can get through it, put on a brave face.
Yeah.
But if it's more serious than that, like you said, the cracks will appear.
Yeah.
So what did you do then to look after yourself during those times?
So about four years ago, I went through a really bad phase of anxiety and panic attacks and did some counselling, got antidepressant medication to try and help relieve that, took some time off work and just tried to take care of myself, go for walks and have a bath and listen to my favourite music and eat my favourite food and things like that, and just try and really take care of myself. I got to the point last year where I was just about to come off of the medication completely, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks again. And it's hard trying to navigate that. And as it turns out, I ended up going back up to the full dose of my anti-anxiety meds. But they do help. And, I've come out the other side of it now, but I don't know if I would have got through it necessarily without the help of medication. And it's a very taboo subject because some people don't believe in it and some people do. But I think you need to do whatever is right for you in that time. And for me, it was the medication that was helping, because that allowed me to then take some time back, say to work, look, I'm struggling, I need to take some time off, and then do the things that make me happy. Like, as I say, taking the dog for a walk and taking a long bath and things like that, reading my favourite books and getting yourself back to that centred place where you can say, actually, I feel a little bit better, I can do this and I can come out the other side.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because I know it's tough to talk about, and being vulnerable is a superpower there. Yeah. Not a lot of people possess that. Yeah. So were you open with your team? Were they aware? Were they supportive?
Yeah. No, they were really, really good. And even if one of us is off sick, the first thing everyone says is, what do you need covered today? Because there can be a culture with remote working of you're kind of half off, especially with annual leave as well. You're only half off work because you can check your emails on your phone, you can check your Teams on your phone. Oh, I'll just reply to that message really quickly. But actually, you do need to take that time and step back and decompress and just say, no, I'm not looking at anything. So the first thing the team always say is, what's on today? What do you need covered? And it helps you free your mind because you know that things are covered.
Yeah, wow.
So it's a really nice environment to be in, to know that everyone has your back. And if, as I say, if someone says, I'm not feeling well today, I need to go off sick, it's great that you know that the team have it and you don't need to worry and you can concentrate on getting yourself feeling better.
Yeah, because we know there's a lot of businesses out there that it's kind of looked down on, like, oh, sick again. Or how do you find remote working? Because you said obviously there's times when it's great that you can if you're having an off day.
Yeah.
Do you think it is detrimental in any way to mental health for some people? Of course, not everybody, because you're not having that interaction, that engagement. That for me personally, that's where I get my energy from. Even if I don't feel like it, when I'm then around people, I'm like, oh yeah, I feel better now. Yeah,
as I say, I think there's pros and cons for both. I personally love remote working because I struggle with anxiety. Sometimes it is difficult for me to, even just get out of bed and get in the shower. So for me, if I'm having a bad day, I can, take my time, sit and eat my breakfast, and then I'm ready to, face the day without having to do the commute to the office. But at the same time, going into the office and sitting and chatting with people is great. And that is how you build those stakeholder relationships. But if the people you need to build the stakeholder relationships aren't in the office, what's the point of going in?
Yeah.
So it is tricky. I mean, we're split across London and Belfast, so a lot of the people that I speak to are based in Belfast. So I would go into the London office and sit on Teams calls all day.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, okay, in that situation, do I really need to go in? Probably not. So let's plan the day that I am in the office around when I don't have the Teams calls and I can sit and interact with people. Remote working just provides so much flexibility to people. And as I say, for me, I do like it because it gives me that freedom to say, actually, do you know what? I am having a slow morning. I need to just take some time to get myself in the right mindset for work without needing to do the commute. But I do appreciate that for a lot of people, it's sometimes the only communication they have during a day if they live on their own and things like that. And from a mental health perspective, it can be quite isolating if you don't look after yourself with it.
Yeah, this is why like networking events are key. When did you start getting into the networking scene and how did you find that? Because I know a lot of people can find it daunting.
Yeah.
I went to Women in Data a couple of years ago by myself and I was so nervous. But then I was like, they look like they're by themselves, so I'll just go and sit with them and strike a conversation.
Yeah, Women in Data is a whole other scale though. It's such a fabulous conference and it's just a whole nother level. But I've been to Women in Data for three years. So that was kind of me dipping my toe into networking properly with sort of the groups like Let's Talk Data and Data Engineers London and that sort of stuff, probably end of last year.
Okay.
I have an anxiety that I don't want to be left behind in the industry. And so where I'm focusing more on strategy and data products and not necessarily data tools at this point, I don't want to be kind of left behind. So it's really invaluable for me to get other people's experiences about what tools they're using, how they're using it, what value they're getting for it, so that I can then prepare, business cases for our business to say, okay, I think this would be good. I think this will solve this problem. So for me, it's invaluable for that reason. But also I did a panel for Data Engineers London a couple of months ago, and there were young girls just trying to get into data that were there. And that was great because they were talking to me afterwards about, what should I put on my CV? Do you think I need a portfolio? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? And what would you recommend? And it was really nice, but also humbling to say to these girls, this is what I think you should do. And it was really nice that they kind of valued my opinion as well.
Yeah.
It actually coming to these events and doing the panel talks and things, I think has taken away my imposter syndrome a little bit, because it's like, actually, I do know what I'm talking about.
Of course you do.
I can do this. I do know what I'm talking about. And it's nice and humbling at the same time.
Like Phil said as well, you can't do everything.
No.
That's why we have teams to collaborate, to complement skill sets. So please don't feel that pressure because you've got some real super skills that a lot of people don't possess.
Thank you.
Which do come naturally to some and not others. So I'd try and take that pressure off.
Yeah.
So in terms of like going forward for you, what excites you about the industry? And without getting distracted by shiny tools, what are you like, that's cool. That's going to solve some problems.
I mean, AI is the big thing, isn't it? I mean, there's a balance between using AI properly and just obviously diving headfirst into it. And a lot of what I've read online and on Reddit and LinkedIn and things is people diving headfirst into it and not utilising it properly. One of the attendees last night actually made a really good point about using machine learning and AI to pick out the problems in your data quality so that you could then put it through another AI algorithm to pull the insights and things out of it that way. And I found that really interesting. I don't think we've even touched on the limits of what AI can do and how it can be beneficial. So I'm quite excited to see where that goes.
Yeah. Our family members, people that, because I always think it's really interesting for data and AI people that maybe once upon a time friends and family didn't really understand what you did, thought it was a bit boring.
They still don't.
Hate to say it. But now everyone's talking about it though, because like you said, it's ubiquitous, it's in the news. Are they still not engaging in conversation about it, or have you noticed?
Not really. I think ChatGPT is like the limit if you're not in the industry, to be totally honest. One of my best friends, we always joke that she doesn't know what I do for a living, and she said she said to me once, so you're a data manager, right? I said, yeah, kind of. And she said, so does that mean you manage data? I went, yeah, kind of. But if you're not in the industry, you don't know what's going on. And, you know, as I said earlier, data is everywhere. It's in your everyday life. And if you don't understand or appreciate that, it's then difficult to know what data teams are actually doing and how they're moving forward.
Yeah, it's quite hard to describe, isn't it? I've had those chats. I was in a taxi in London. I was like, oh, got a podcast called Let's Talk Data. He's like, what's data? I was like, oh yeah,
everything.
That's a really good question. But like you said, break it down. I liked Phil's example again last night about the data lake. Think about it like a house.
Yeah,
you've got to make it relatable because there are so many buzzwords that people just switch off. R, Python, Scala. Sorry, what are you talking about?
Yeah, my favourite is actually the Lego analogy. So, or the toy box analogy. So, you have a toy box full of toys, but then you have different categories of toys. And then within those categories, like Lego, you have different shapes of Lego and different colours of Lego. And it's how you break it down. And then you can analyse, okay, well, I've got, 20 pieces of Lego in this shape, but only 5 of them are in this colour. And, you know, it's about telling the story and making it relatable to people, as you say, so that they can understand it. And everything is different to different people, what's relatable to them. So using very simple analogies like the house or the Lego, or I think Phil said one about a car yesterday as well. It makes it relatable to people, and then it's like, oh, I actually understand that now. Yeah,
you need to talk in their language. Yeah. Another part of your life I know where data plays a part is golf.
It is.
I mean, sports are getting crazy with the insights and analytics. It's like massive, isn't it? Are you really into your data from a golf perspective?
I am, yeah. I've played golf since I was a young child. My dad got me into it, and
love that.
I think that's partly the reason why I'm so outgoing as well, because, you know, at the age of 12 years old, I was walking around a golf course with him and 2 other men, his friends. So I've been used to being in that environment of like very male dominated environment. But yeah, so my dad got me into it. I took a little break sort of after university. Golf fees are horrendously high for people on a graduate salary. But the golf club that I'm a member of now is really, really great. And it's a great feel. There's loads of people there and it's just great fun. But again, people don't realise the data in golf. So, you know, when you play golf, you have a handicap. Your handicap's made up of your last 20 cards. You have to add cards in order to get a handicap in the first place, but then there's all kinds of different data around how difficult a hole is, or, you know, what the average score is in a competition. And it is really interesting. And being in the data space anyway, that sort of stuff comes naturally to me. So the fact that I can do it in something that I love as well it's just great.
So do you track data? Do you have Excel spreadsheets for your golf data?
Yeah, I do.
Do you?
You have to do a thing called a handicap review every year. So it basically just assesses if people have put enough cards in to keep their handicap accurate. And the portal that you can pull the reports off of is very simple CSV outputs. And no report tells you the whole story. So you have to pull 6 or 7 different reports in order to put together this story. Well, being the data geek that I am, I pulled all of them into an Excel spreadsheet, whacked it into Power BI and pulled out pie charts and all sorts to flag people that needed review. And I actually went to a handicap event a few weeks ago, and I was talking to the guy doing the presentation there about, you know, we need this system improved, and you know, are they going to ever set up an API so that we can pull data straight out of it? And actually it turns out that they have no influence on it because they outsource it from somewhere else.
Oh, no.
So in order to request a new feature to the platform, I have to go through Essex Golf, then to England Golf, then to the platform that run the handicap software. If you've got to go through 3 people to get a feature request, it's never going to get done.
No. I love that, though. You're giving them free advice. Yeah. Like, this is what you need.
This is what we need to do.
Were they taken aback, or were they quite receptive to that?
No, very receptive, because he was a data guy anyway.
Right.
So he was part of the data team for England Golf. So he knew exactly what I was talking about, had exactly the same frustrations as me. But when you've got to go through that many people for a platform that is literally worldwide. It's the World Handicap System. It's so tough to actually get changes in there.
I can imagine. It's quite it's quite archaic in ways, isn't it, golf?
Yeah.
Like, I think the systems need to maybe modernise somewhat. How do you find like the etiquette to know, because it is a man's world, isn't it, golf? And again, that's a sport struggling to get female interest in it. Are you like seeing more females get into the sport? Or?
I am actually, yeah. It's not as bad as it was. You know, back in, I don't know, 20 odd years ago, it was the men that went out to work and the women were housewives at home, and they could play golf during the week, and the men would play at the weekend. It's not like that anymore. Women work, they have full-time jobs, so have to play on a weekend as well. And I'm very fortunate at my club that we can play on a Wednesday or a Saturday. So if you want to play during the week, you can. If you want to play at the weekend, you can. But there's not much keeping women in the game around my age. It's only because I've played it since I was little that I still play and I love it. But there's not actually much encouraging women into golf around my age. You're either very young, junior, starting out, get to about 18, drop off, and then you get to 45, 50 and come back into it again. So it's an interesting landscape with it being quite heavily male driven, trying to recruit and retain women in the golf world as well.
I can imagine. My granny Pam was ladies captain.
Really?
Yeah.
Excellent.
And my dad plays, and I was always like, so a handicap is good to be lower.
Good to be
Got
low.
you.
Yeah.
I know you play off 9.
9.
Yeah, he played off 9 as well,
Amazing.
my dad. Yeah, it is a great sport, but again, it's one that it's not very accessible.
No.
I heard Rory McIlroy talking about this. It's expensive.
It is expensive. Very expensive. And you know, I said earlier, I gave up when I came out of university because the fees were extortionate. I was on a graduate salary and my membership was nearly £1,200 a year. I don't want to do that to never play golf, you know? And if you haven't got the opportunity to play on a weekend, it's just money down the drain. It was working out that I was paying about £120 every time I was playing golf if I was paying those membership fees. Whereas now, the club I'm a member at now, they do that full membership option, but they also do a pay and play option, which is what I do. So I pay a retainer of nearly £40 a month and then pay a green fee every time I go. So I've got my membership, but I'm not beholden to that extortionate amount of money.
Yeah.
But then you start looking at equipment, and you know, golf clubs go for anywhere between £200 and £500 these days for a single golf club, depending on what you buy. So it is expensive, and it is difficult to stay in it with, you know, the good equipment and things like that if you don't have the money to do it.
Yeah. Do you think with data, can you get too obsessed with data, do you think? Like, do you always look at the data, or do you trust your gut, intuition? Is it a balance?
It's definitely a balance. I've learned to trust my gut more. Data can give you a good part of the story, but it will never give you the whole story. We are 2 women sitting here, so we could say, well, in this room, there's 100% of women in data sitting here right now, but there's 2 people in the room. So it gives you part of the picture. It doesn't ever give you the full story. And if you feel the data is not telling you the complete story, you definitely need to trust your gut. You also then get into the issue of data quality. Is the data that you're actually using complete, accurate? It's a whole minefield, so that there is definitely a balance between trusting the data and trusting your gut.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Do you see people getting fixed on the data and like that it's so binary, it's black and white, they can't see within the grey?
Not really, from my experience. We've definitely, at Reward, we've definitely got people that look outside of the data, which is really great. Yeah, as I say, I think it's just a balance, and yeah.
That's why it is a bigger picture, because it's like, look at the data, but also don't look at the just the data.
Yeah.
And that's why maybe it's a hard thing to sell.
Yeah, it is. But it's also, if you're saying to people, look at the data, don't necessarily trust the data, that then removes trust in the team, which, you know, creates more problems. And it's a very, very fine balance to strike.
Yeah, it is. Well, we're going to move on to the quick fire data lightning round. What's one common misconception about data that you'd like to debunk?
That it's complicated. It can be complicated, but it's not always.
Yeah.
And it is literally everywhere. You know, you can download like your Spotify playlist history and things like that, and people don't realise that they're doing that as part of their everyday life on their commute, listening to songs or podcasts on the train. It is literally everywhere.
Yeah.
And if people think that they're not involved in data, they're very, very wrong.
Name a book, event or podcast that you think every data enthusiast should explore.
Let's Talk Data.
Love that
Absolutely. From an event perspective, there's obviously Big Data London, which is very, very good. But for women looking to get into data, I would definitely recommend Women in Data.
It's brilliant.
It's an incredible conference, and you meet so many like-minded women, and it is very, very humbling to sit in a room with 3,000 other women who are in the same space as you, because it can feel very lonely. And it's as aside from the networking opportunities, it's just a very safe space to sit and have conversations, which is great.
Agreed. And everyone wears red. I love that.
It's great. Yeah.
Power.
Yeah.
Power. Number 3, if you could offer one piece of advice to someone just starting their journey into the world of data, what would that be?
You're never going to know everything. There's always going to be things you don't know. There's always going to be things that people know more than you. The data landscape changes so much. You're never going to know everything. The key skills are understanding where to find information and how to digest information, not necessarily retaining it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should give yourself that advice.
I should. Yeah, I should.
Finish this sentence. Data is the key to
Life. So it's everywhere. It really, really is everywhere.
Life.
Yeah, life.
What is a data buzzword that you'd like to erase from the data dictionary?
Oh, actionable insights. I cannot stand it. What makes insights actionable? Can anyone actually answer that question? You know, insights can give you stories to tell. They can give you different viewpoints. But what actually makes it actionable? What does it even mean? I can't stand actionable insights.
Nailed that. Didn't even have to think about that one.
No,
tip of your tongue.
Sits in my head all the time.
Oh, well, amazing. Well done.
Thank
That's
you.
a wrap.